Under the same roof, we share the love. Embracing the differences like hand in glove. Spreading peace and joy, it's a beautiful sight. Together we shine in each other's light. United we stand in love's pure might. Watching the world share in love and light. Hearts beating as one in our peaceful flight. Colors of harmony painting the night. United we stand in love's pure might.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to the channel. Stella is in the building. Thank you, Stella, for the great support and moderation. Last night was the deadline for the release of the Epstein files. But guess what, folks? No files, just a partial. And today we're going to break down why there's no complete Epstein files. We want to know. Everybody wants to know. In fact, Todd Blanche came forward. He's one of Donald Trump's top men of the administration when it comes to the Department of Justice. And let's take a peek at what he had to say in regards to this matter. As you come in, please hit the like button, share, and subscribe. We appreciate having you guys here. This channel is very unbiased, even though we have Democrats and Republicans or whoever else. Doesn't matter. We just ask that you be respectful to each other, no violence. We rather debate with the mind than take it to the street, folks. But let's check out what Todd Blanche had to say as to why we still do not have the complete Epstein files by the deadline, which was last night at 12:59 p.m. Thank you.
It marks the deadline for the DOJ to make the Epstein.
Well, let's see here.
After the president signed a law requiring those to be released. So in these files, are we going to learn any new information about Epstein and people that may have been associated with him?
So yes, so today is the 30 days where, and I expect that we're going to release several 100,000 documents today, and those documents will come in all different forms, photographs and other materials associated with all of the investigations into.
Now notice that he did not say the complete files. He put a number to it. It's not the complete files, folks.
Mr. Epstein, and just so everybody appreciates, President Trump has said for years that he wants full transparency and he wants the Department of Justice to release everything that we can with respect to this investigation and cases. And we saw during the Biden administration radio silence from the very Democrats that are screaming from congressional steps today that we haven't done enough. But guess what? President Trump.
Now, I have to agree with him here because during the Biden administration, we did not hear much about Epstein. In fact, what really triggered the Epstein files was when Elon Musk was disgruntled with Donald Trump. And then he tweeted, he says, Donald Trump is the Epstein files. But he said that out of contention. And that's when all this big snowstorm of Epstein files started earlier this year. Let's get to it.
Trump signed that law 30 days ago, and we have been working tirelessly since that day to make sure that we get every single document that we have within the Department of Justice, review it, and get it to the American public. Now,
exactly, the great one, yes. Brainwash people. Thank you.
the most important thing that the Attorney General has talked about, that Director Patel has talked about, is that we protect victims. And so what we're doing is we are looking at every single piece of paper that we are going to produce, making sure that every victim, their name, their identity, their story, to the extent it needs to be protected, is completely protected. And so I expect that we're going to release more documents over the next couple of weeks. So today, several 100,000, and then over the next couple of weeks, I expect several 100,000 more. There's a lot of eyes looking at these, and we want to.
So immediately when he made this announcement, a lot of Democrats especially came forward saying they have broken the law. They did not release the files by the deadline. This is breaking the law. This is a huge cover-up. So now we get the chance to see why when you go to media they're all saying that Donald Trump did not hold to the rule of law.
Make sure that when we do produce the materials we're producing, that we're
let's see here. Let's get to some of the comments. I want everybody to be heard. Gradual Decay says Trump would have been sued if he released the files, hence the vote. He shifted responsibility. Thank you. Hey guys, thank you for liking the channel, sharing, and subscribing. We do this every day. Birth says it's all lies, lies, lies. Keith, welcome in, Keith. Keith said, didn't Trump kick him out of the club? Yes, he did. He kicked Epstein out. Now, there's two different big theories moving about it. Donald Trump said he kicked Epstein out because Epstein had taken Virginia Dufresne from Mar-a-Lago. So this is what Donald Trump gave as his explanation. But then there's also another story that's floating that there was a real estate deal where Epstein had brought a property to Donald Trump, said, hey, listen, this property looks amazing. And then Donald Trump purchased the property from under Epstein. And this is the reason why they fell apart. So we have two different narratives going, but we're going to try to get to the bottom of it. Okay. Thank you. Stella says, welcome into you, Gradual. Okay. Keith says Clinton went to the island several times. We're going to get to that today. We actually have photos that were released. We're going to get to those photos during this live stream.
Protecting every single victim. A judge in New York has required the U.S. Attorney in New York to also look at the materials to make sure that victims' information is protected.
So,
the judge in Sorry,
I only got 10 seconds left, Todd, but real quickly, since you guys are releasing these files, we shouldn't expect any charges to come out, any more charges, right?
Well, look, as the president directed, it's still being investigated, and I expect that will continue to happen. So we, as of today, there's no new charges coming, but we are investigating.
All right.
Okay, so they are investigating, but we'll have to see how this all develops. We definitely will be reporting on the matter. Now, simultaneously, we're going to give you a little insight into what the Democrats and also some of the senators are saying. And they're actually pushing back on the fact that the Epstein files were not put out in harmony with the deadline that was requested. Oh, great. We see Eric is here as well. Thank you, Eric. Tom says, Trump, baby. Okay. Keith says he's from Texas. Okay, so let's get to the pushback that we have here on the Epstein files.
We'll come back to David and Geraldo.
They will be releasing in the weeks ahead. It is disappointing that they haven't been able to release these documents on time in compliance with the law. While it's clear they're trying at the very least to meet the deadline, they should have been able to do more. And if they couldn't do it, they should have met with.
Guys, take a moment, hit the like button if you really want to support the channel so we can keep doing this every day. Also, you can share and subscribe too. Thank you.
The survivors' lawyers or with the Oversight Committee or with Massey and me to explain why not. But at this point, what we need is a clear timeline of when the rest of the documents will be released and an explanation for why they did not release all of them today. If it is that they need more time.
Put a 1 in the chat if you were expecting all the complete files to come out last night in accordance with the guideline, or put a 2 if you feel like these files are never coming out. Donald J. Plump says the unemployment rate rose 4.6%, with more Americans out of work than any month since October 2021. Thank you, Donald J. Plump. Nice to have you here. Tom says hello to Stella. Great. All right. Thank you guys for all the comments. Rick says, let's see all the files. Time is up. Rich is frustrated. Rick wants to see the Epstein files, and he wants to see them now.
To review everything for appropriate protection of victims, they need to explain that. But they need to give dates of when the rest of these documents will be released. The second thing is that some of the documents, I've just been scanning them, have very heavy redactions. This including documents for which judges ordered released, like the grand jury testimony in New York. They owe the Congress and the American public an explanation for every redaction. That I didn't see published on the DOJ page, but the law is very clear that any redaction has to be justified in writing. They need to do that. Third, from the survivors who have...
Okay, so they are redacted because they're trying to protect the victims in this case. A lot of people, in fact, last night during our show that we do every night at 8 p.m., someone had pointed out that some of these individuals may feel like their lives are threatened, so therefore they don't want their faces shown. Also, the government's trying to protect them. That all makes sense. As far as the question that I just posed, a lot of people have responded thinking that the Epstein files are never coming out. So that's the majority so far.
They are appreciative that finally they're being heard, they're being seen, and documents are coming out. But what they care most about is that the documents come out that expose the rich and powerful men who either raped them, abused them, or were at these sex parties watching them be abused.
The next video, I'm going to show you the photos of high-profile individuals chilling in the pool in the whatever setting they did have with Epstein.
There are many of these rich and powerful people. They showed up at these parties and they knew there were 16, 17-year-olds there. They want those names out. They want that information out. Specifically, they want the indictments drafts out, the initial indictment of Jeffrey Epstein in Florida. They want documents out in terms of the FBI witness interviews with a lot of these rich and powerful men. We will see if any of the documents that have been released are those documents. If not, we're going to continue to push for the actual documents which the American public wants to see. Look, the Justice Department has very little credibility. Pam Bondi said months ago there was nothing.
Most people feel like this current Justice Department is in the pocket of Donald Trump. Do you feel the same way? They feel like he has control of Pam Bondi. We also saw what happened this week with Dan Bongino stepping away. I think he might let the cat out the bag. We're going to learn more from Dan Bongino. It seems like he left under some sort of stressful situation. Even though his departure date is forthcoming, they already cleared out his office. I believe it was on December the 4th or the 5th. So that's kind of unusual. Anyone that works in a corporate setting would understand that that's almost like you're being removed rapidly. So maybe he'll be able to speak out and tell us more of an insight as to his frustration. Did it have anything to do with Epstein files? We do not know.
More to release. Now they've contradicted themselves. Obviously, there was more to release, given that they're releasing hundreds of thousands of new documents. Now, the question is, how do we believe them? The only way they're going to have trust is if they take an open press conference, they explain to the American public what documents they've released, what they're redacting, why they've redacted that, what documents they continue to plan to release, and when we expect to get all of the documents that the law calls for. Thomas Massie and I will continue to explore all options to fight to make sure that they comply with the law, whether that is holding people in inherent contempt, recommending people for prosecution, recommending.
It's kind of hard to take people serious when it comes to the Epstein files because it keeps going on, back and forth. We can't even get a precise understanding of the Epstein files from Donald Trump and also Pam Bondi, because originally she says, hey, these files are on my desk. She came back within 2 months later and says, oh, there are no files. And Donald Trump says there are no files. And then after the pressure from the media, they came back and says, oh, we do have files. And then Donald Trump says these files are all a hoax, right? So we keep this going back and forth about the files. It makes you feel like there's something that's not being told truthfully.
Impeachment or private lawsuits. I was encouraged initially when Todd Blanche said that we were going to have hundreds of thousands of documents released. So far, I have not seen much new. That doesn't mean we have, obviously, we're having a lot of.
Now, this is key for you guys to know. I attended Donald Trump's trial here in New York, as I've attended many trials like Luigi Mangione. I just finished up this week. Also, Sean Diddy Combs, Harvey Weinstein, and so forth. When it comes to Donald Trump's trial in New York, Todd Blanche, he was Donald Trump's attorney for that trial where Donald Trump received 34 felonies. It's key to know that. And so now Todd Blanche is working in Donald Trump's administration, right, as an attorney at a higher level. And he's there to look at and protect the president's interests. So that's why you see that Todd Blanche went and met with Maxwell in the prison to interview. He walked away. Maxwell basically said Donald Trump did nothing nefarious when it came to the files. She even said that Epstein really didn't do anything wrong. So you can only take this with a grain of salt. But that just gives you a little insight that Todd Blanche, that's handling the Epstein files, also handled Donald Trump's personal life when it came to the 34 felonies here in New York City.
Lawyers go through them. I'm hopeful they will be some new evidence about the rich and powerful men who abused these survivors. And that is what we're going to look for, to see whether even the initial batch is in good faith or whether this is more stonewalling on the Justice Department's part.
And we can definitely say it's stonewalling. Now, Tom just made a comment, says, I think Clinton was there with Monica Lewinsky, right? Okay, so that's your opinion. That's a strong opinion. Cindy, who also has Luigi Mangione's photo, so I'm pretty sure you'll anticipate when I cover him at the end of this show. Cindy says both Trump and Clinton both should go to prison. Is that the way you feel? Do you think they should both be held to the same statute of the law? Now, let's get to who was actually in some of these photos with Jeffrey Epstein. Okay, so far we see Bill Clinton is there. In some of the photos, we see unidentified females. All right, so this is the one that is taking people by storm. You have Bill Clinton here just chilling in the, looks like it may be the jacuzzi or the pool. So it would be really hard for him to argue that he didn't know Epstein in a personal way. Okay, so now you have Maxwell and you have Bill Clinton here. And there's another female with her face redacted as this photo is enlarged. Okay, Kevin Spacey, I believe. You see Bill Clinton and other figures. All right, there you have Ghislaine Maxwell too. Okay, so still you have a lot different. You notice Bill Clinton has on different outfits, or in some he has none, perhaps, or a limited amount. But it shows different time and places. Perhaps Bill Clinton knew Epstein quite well. All right, who is this fella here? Whoever can name him will receive $20. The first person to name this figure here. Okay, so there you have it. Mostly here you have Bill Clinton, but we have other photos coming of Donald Trump in a similar setting. Now we're going to switch gears. We're going to talk about another issue that's floating around on social media in regards to Donald Trump, that people are quite upset, or they feel like he's made a mockery of the White House. Well, maybe you have a different point of view, but at any rate, we're going to check out this video, how Donald Trump has put up portraits outside of the White House with most of the previous presidents. Let's check it out.
The South Lawn of the White House, and we noticed some very interesting changes that President Trump has made to the colonnade. He has now installed a presidential walk of fame. On it, he has photos of every single president. He has now added descriptions underneath every single presidential portrait. The descriptions under his predecessor, Joe Biden, read sleepy and crooked.
Okay, so what do you guys think about the fact that he has, now this is the White House, a former president, and he puts on the plaque, Sleepy Joe.
He calls former President Barack Obama one of the most divisive figures in American history. And then as for former President Bill Clinton, he has a note under there that his...
Do you guys feel like this takes away from the White House in any way, fashion, or form, the fact that he speaks of Barack Obama? Or do you think that this is good and you feel the same way about him? But let's get to Bill Clinton now.
Wife Hillary lost to him in 2016. These are...
Okay, so he found it necessary to note that Hillary Clinton, under Bill Clinton's photo, that she lost to him in the election.
Just some of the changes that the president has made here to the White House. We already know that he has completely demolished the East Wing to make room for that ballroom. He's also paved over the Rose Garden. There's now a concrete patio in its place.
Yes, I also saw some headlines today where Donald Trump is going to be renaming some of the monumental places in Washington, D.C. with his name on it, right? So we're starting to see the major influence of Donald Trump. Whether you like him or not, these things are happening. Donald Trump is definitely going to go down in history as probably one of the strongest presidents, because you can no doubt see that a lot of people really, really like Donald Trump, whether the majority like it or not. And that's why when it comes to the Epstein files, I don't think you're going to see too much pushback at all in the fact that they're not going to release the major parts or the points of interest. Critical says, and when they release the files, anything that's redacted to protect the innocent, the dumb ones will say is Trump protecting himself. Okay, Critical, that's how you feel about the matter. Thank you for expressing yourself. Eric says, everyone enjoy your day and share the live stream with a friend. A lot of the stories that we break are often, they come from Eric. So Eric is a key ingredient to this channel as well. Critical says, Donald Trump, that is a new low IQ insult. Okay, all right. So we have some people here not so happy with Donald Trump at all, but we do have a lot of Donald Trump supporters as well. Okay, so now we're going to take a look at what's happening in Syria. I'm pretty sure you've heard about the major strike that has developed there as a response to the violence that happened to the soldiers from the United States.
Following some news here, as we learned yesterday that the U.S. military launched strikes in Syria, and now we're getting some new video in here showing that operation. Putting this up on your screen right now from U.S. Central Command. This was a post to social media saying U.S. forces struck 70-plus ISIS targets in Syria, peace through strength. And you can see to the left side of your screen there is a still of that video. And I want to put that up on your screen here now. Once again, this was posted to social media just last.
So we get a chance to see they have actual footage. It was a major strike, knocking out 70 individuals.
Last night, the Trump administration launched military strikes yesterday in Syria to eliminate Islamic State group fighters and weapons sites in retaliation for an ambush attack that killed 2 U.S. troops and an American civilian interpreter almost a week ago. A U.S. official described it as a large-scale strike that hit 70 targets in areas across central Syria that had IS infrastructure.
So the president of the United States is sending out a message that anyone that causes violence in connection with the United States individuals will be responded with violence. It's a strong message, but will this slow up a lot of the attacks that we see around the world? Well, only time will tell.
Structuring weapons. Another U.S. official who spoke on the condition of anonymity to the Associated Press to discuss the sensitive operation said more strikes should be expected. The new military operation in Syria comes even as the Trump administration has said it's looking to focus closer to home in the Western Hemisphere, targeting alleged drug smuggling boats in the Caribbean Sea and vowing to keep seizing sanctioned oil tankers as part of the pressure campaign on Venezuela.
Now, we've been covering the whole situation in Venezuela all week. In fact, a lot of people are trying to determine, they doubt whether or not these boats are all just drug traffickers. Some people feel like, well, might be people out fishing. They want to see more information. But it's interesting. We're living in a time where people doubt just about anything. And there's little trust for the government. That's why a lot of people are pushing back. In fact, if you look at the comments, Michael Tristan says Pam Bondi is a liar. And she sits at the top seat when it comes to the Department of Justice, right? So that goes to show the point that we're living in a time that's very treacherous.
Venezuela's leader. The U.S. has shifted significant resources away from the Middle East to further those goals. Its most advanced aircraft carrier arrived in South American waters last month from the Mediterranean Sea. President Trump pledged, quote, very serious retaliation after the shooting in the Syrian desert, for which he blamed the Islamic State. Those killed were among hundreds of U.S. troops deployed in eastern Syria as part of a coalition fighting the militant group. I also wanted to share this post here on your screen with you from Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. He says U.S. forces commenced Operation Hawkeye Strike in Syria to eliminate ISIS fighters infrastructure and weapons sites in direct response to the attack on U.S. forces that occurred on December 13th in Syria. This is not the beginning of a war. It is a declaration of vengeance. The United States of America, under President Trump's leadership, will never hesitate and never relent to defend our people. As we said directly following the savage attack, if you target Americans anywhere in the world, you will spend the rest of your brief, anxious life knowing the United States will hunt you, find you, and ruthlessly kill you. Today, we hunted and we killed our enemies, lots of them, and we will continue.
Okay, so do you have confidence and trust in the government? If you do, please tell us in the comments. If not, also express that as well. Now, recently this week, I was contacted by a member of Tory Lanez's family, and this was in conjunction with a report that came out in regards to him this week. So I'm going to show this particular video. When it comes to this particular case, as you know, I think he's doing about 10 years for the shooting of Megan Thee Stallion. She's a big rap artist. In fact, if you were following Kamala's campaign, she actually was one of the individuals that was paid to perform in front of the masses for her campaign, which ultimately they lost. And a lot of people are pushing back as to how much can artists influence a presidential run. Probably not a lot. And we discussed that on the channel as well. Even when it comes to Oprah and Barack Obama, it's very tough now to have a major influence. It might just be the Donald Trump effect. We don't know. But at any rate, when it comes to Tory Lanez, he did an interview this week. I want to go through it. I did say that I would put it out there, but I will be doing some deep diving into the whole case to see if I can hang my hat on this case to see if it was perhaps he was innocent or not guilty, or guilty as he was charged. Let's get to it.
Rapper Tory Lanez breaking his silence in his first ever broadcast interview from behind bars since being found guilty of shooting Grammy winner Megan Thee Stallion in the foot outside a party in 2020.
I've never been violent towards a woman. I would never hit a woman, let alone shoot a woman.
Lanez, whose real name is Daystar Peterson, spoke to NBC News from California Men's Colony, a prison where he's 3 years into a 10-year sentence after being found guilty on 3 felony counts, including assault.
You know, it's not a good look when you have a star, you've made millions, you're popular, you're streaming everywhere, and then you go to prison, you get charged. We also see this with Suge Knight. We see it with Sean Diddy Combs. Individuals get a lot of money, Harvey Weinstein. They get all this fame and fortune, but then they make these mistakes and sit behind bars the rest of their life, or for a great measure of their lives.
With a semi-automatic firearm.
There is definitely a very big misconception about me that seems to the public as I'm this monster. And I feel like I was catapulted into this poster child for the unprotection of Black women. And it's just so unlike me.
As you're watching this, I want you to tell me if you think that this gives him a good look. Is he coming across as a reformed person, or do you think he's innocent? Give us your ideas. A user says no one is above the law except for the super rich. Well, I don't even think that's the case, because I sat through Donald Trump's case. He walked away with 34 felonies. I do believe if he had not become president, he would have potentially faced some time of some sort. It was that serious, because as I sat through the trial, I saw that the judge definitely did not like Donald Trump. That was a clear indication as I sat there each day right behind Donald Trump, in fact, so I could see it with my own eyes. But this is something that we really need to factor in when we look at these cases. How much does money really play? Even with Sean Diddy Combs paying millions of dollars, he's still sitting in jail right now.
And I've never really had a chance to express that, but you can look at my criminal record. I don't have one. I never had one. And I feel like, you know, that connotation that I would do anything of this monstrous proportion is just, it's completely incorrect and it's wrong.
Lanez declined to testify during his 2022 trial. Do you regret not taking the stand?
I think if I would have taken the stand, the verdict would have definitely been very different.
The rapper's legal team filed an appeal, which was denied in.
Well, you should have took the stand.
November, but his team is continuing to fight with plans to file multiple appeals next week, this time with the California Supreme Court, in one claiming newly discovered evidence that they weren't provided during Lanez's 2022 trial, including hundreds of pages of medical records for Megan Thee Stallion, whose real name is Megan Pete, which they allege raise questions about the fragments removed from her foot after surgery. His team argues that the fragments were not provided ahead of trial and that this was a violation of due process.
And we didn't have that chance. Or perhaps we could have questioned the doctors differently when they were on stand to impeach them, because it does look suspicious.
But in the appeal denied in November, the court did address the fragments, ruling that the surgeon's testimony was, quote, more than sufficient to prove great bodily injury on Pete. Proving something like this on appeal is tough.
This is a really, really difficult.
Okay, guys, John Berry won the $25. I just need you to email over your Cash App. Thank you very much. That individual was Chris Tucker. Thank you.
Appellate argument for defendants to prove, because they have to show if the evidence actually came into court, the jury would have found differently. It's an uphill battle, and it's something that often torpedoes any defense appellate argument.
The Los Angeles District Attorney's Office and representatives for Megan Thee Stallion have not responded to NBC News' request for comment.
I believe not only that I was wrongfully convicted, but the amount of new evidence that has emerged since that trial, I think, has been overwhelming.
What has life been like in prison for the last couple of years?
Truthfully, I've done my best to keep my head above water, but mentally, I've gone through trauma that I sometimes even struggle with, because I never imagined myself dealing with things that I would have to deal with. I've been stabbed 17 times. I almost lost my life.
If you could say something to Megan Thee Stallion today, what would it be?
I think that I wouldn't say something directly to her. I would like that moment to happen in person. We've both gone through a lot. There's this connotation that, like, I share this hatred for her, but I don't. I genuinely passed that. I'm at a place of healing in my life. I'm at a place of taking accountability for the things that I did wrong. And when I talk about my case, I don't want it to be taken as me coming at her, because it's not that. I'm just asking for somebody in the system to look at my case and look at the evidence and act.
Okay, so I want to take a quick pause here. Someone is saying that Biden is also on the list. I have not seen that. If you have it, please provide it. I would like to take a look at that. Thank you.
If this was fair.
And with that, Chloe Malas joins us now on set. So, Chloe, Tory Lanez is also seeking a pardon from Governor Gavin Newsom.
That's right. His legal team has filed the necessary paperwork, and it is before the governor now. So they're seeking either a pardon where his criminal record will be wiped clean, he would be released from prison, or to have his sentence commuted, meaning that the time he has served is sufficient, and release him, but that doesn't change his criminal record. As for when this could happen, the governor typically does.
Okay, so this particular news anchor here, she was at Sean Diddy's Combs trial every day. She is the individual that interviewed Jay-Z's accuser. Remember the accuser that came out and talked about Jay-Z, and they interviewed her, I believe, in her, it looked like it was in her living room. Okay, so this is the news anchor that actually interviewed her. Take a moment, as Stella says, and like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Turn on your notifications to be notified for upcoming shows. Thank you guys very much. Pussyfoot Production says, not at all. It's all entertainment. Okay, thank you.
These twice a year, so this could happen before the new year.
All right. Chloe Malas for us. Chloe, thank you. We thank you for watching. And remember, stay updated on breaking news.
Okay, very good. So now we're going to move on to our final subject of tonight. Or today. I do so many shows. Sorry about that. But at any rate, we have Luigi Mangione. We're going to cover this story here. But before we get into the details, I want to show you the press conference that was at court. I was actually live reporting on this situation. I recorded them too, but I believe this is NBC that recorded the attorneys, Karen Agnifilo and also Mark Agnifilo. The third attorney, his name is, I think it's Kaplan, Jacob Kaplan. But let's get to it, and then I'm going to break down some of the details in regards to what I saw and heard at the Luigi Mangione hearing. Hopefully you guys are familiar with this case. He's a young man that on December the 4th of last year, allegedly, right? We say allegedly, stood on the streets of New York and shot the CEO of United Healthcare. His name was Brian Thompson. And recently, as of last week, the police department released the 2-hour video that showed Brian Thompson being unalived in the street. We try to use the word unalive because YouTube does not take kindly to certain words, right? But at any rate, once he was shot, you could see he kind of stumbled. He felt pain. He turned around, and then he went into the corner, and that's where his life expired. The thing about it, the individual that shot him used a silencer, a suppressor on the gun, so a lot of people didn't hear it. There was a person in the frame of the actual shooting video that you could see they ran off to the side. So whoever this shooter was had a distinct target that they were going after, and that was Brian Thompson. In fact, the person was lying in wait for Brian Thompson as he was heading to some big meeting, some seminar that evidently it had been stated publicly. So this person knew just where he would be. They basically were stalking him and took his life. But for 2 hours, you get a chance in this video to see how they put him in the ambulance and so forth. So I went to the hearing. The hearing was basically all about them interviewing and having a direct examination of the officers and also giving them a cross-examination because each of them, for the most part, had on their body cams. Although in some cases, the primary officer kept turning off his body cam, which is it's a big problem, especially when you go to the trial, because in most of these cases, the jury and the audience are not familiar with the fact that officers can turn off their cameras. It makes them feel like there's something, not being said or something being withheld, okay? But anyway, let's look at the final press conference from the hearing, and then I'm going to break it down further. So this is Karen Agnifilo right here in the middle. To the left of her, you have Mark Agnifilo. Mark Agnifilo is her husband. That's just some inside information. He represented Sean Diddy Combs in his humongous case. Mark Agnifilo was probably the key ingredient as to why Sean Diddy Combs had the 3 major charges, revolving around the RICO dropped. He was Diddy's primary attorney. And then you have the third attorney to the right of this frame. His name is Jacob Kaplan. He does a good job as well. But in this case, Karen Agnifilo in the middle is the lead attorney. Let's hear what she had to say about the hearing.
Good morning, everyone. First of all, we want to thank everyone for coming and for sitting through a 3-week mini trial that should have been a half a day. MAP hearings and Huntley hearings to suppress statements and evidence usually take a half a day, maybe a day. We were told this was going to be several days, but this went on for 3 weeks unnecessarily, and lots of witnesses were called. And in fact, today we were fully expecting the case detective, Detective Diaz, to testify. And it was only after Lieutenant Leonardi testified about the illegal wiretap of Mr. Mangione in Altoona, Pennsylvania, that they withdrew statement notice, and now suddenly we're not going to have the lead case detective in this case. It's significant. There was a lot of open questions that we wanted to question him about, especially the very prejudicial statement made by the chief of detectives at the time there was a press conference a year ago where they were talking about all the probable cause and the reasons they had to believe that Mr. Mangione committed this crime. And one of those things was that they relied on a statement made by his mother that she said she could see him doing something like this. That's an absolutely false statement. That was never said. And in fact, we asked for discovery regarding that. The prosecution told us they gave us all the discovery. We've even subpoenaed materials from San Francisco Police Department. There is no.
So I noticed some people just got here. We're talking about Luigi Mangione. We also talked about in this show Donald Trump and the Epstein files, which I see in the comments a lot of people are talking about now. We will go back to that for a little bit of discussion, but right now we're focusing on Luigi Mangione because his hearing was the last 3 weeks. I attended in the main courtroom each day, and I've been reporting on it. So if you want to know some of the details along the way, you could go back to my live videos. But this is what we're discussing right now.
No such statement. It was never made. In fact, it was the opposite. What Mrs. Mangione said was that she could never see her son being a risk to himself or others. And we put that on the record again today, and that still has not been corrected by either the NYPD.
So Karen Agnifilo, she wanted the detective Diaz to come into the courtroom so that she could get her fingers on him and cross-examine him, because a lot of the verbiage that was going to the media was incorrect. She just broke down one of them, but there's quite a few discrepancies that the media was pushing out. Like in this particular case, the 2-hour video that was released from the police department to the media about a week ago, that video had not even been shown in court. And here you have the police department releasing it to the public. And this is something that I've learned with Donald Trump's case, but more so with Sean Diddy Combs' case. When the prosecutors feel like they're winning, the defense will put out videos or leak certain information to try to get the public to counter the public, and vice versa. When the defense is winning, sometimes the prosecution will put out and they leak information. Like in Sean Diddy Combs' case, there was a recording that came out between Cassie and a friend of hers where she's saying, "I will kill you, bitch. I will put you in the dirt." That recording was put out by none other than either the prosecution or the defense. So these things happen in this type of case.
Or the Manhattan DA's office. That's a prejudicial statement that has been repeated many, many times. And yes, I'm repeating it here, but because you all have published this over and over and over again, because this was an essential piece of information that Detective Kenny said was relied upon by the NYPD in this case. So we want the NYPD or the San Francisco PD or the Manhattan DA to correct this very prejudicial statement that was never said. So thank you very much for coming.
Why did this Mrs. Mangione about that?
So thank you so much for coming, and we appreciate it all, and we'll see you again soon.
Why did this pretrial last so long? Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
Thanks, everybody.
And we hope.
Okay, so there you have it. So that was the final press conference. Again, I was there. I also recorded this interaction. I also have a lot of footage of interacting with the attorneys as well, because I actually know them from previous trials as well. So, but anyway, let's get to a few points in regards to Luigi Mangione. From what I can make of my determination is that the defense won as far as breaking down the information, as well as also cross-examining the officers. The officers made very bad witnesses in this particular case. And I'm just telling you my observation from being in court, seeing each of these moments when the officers walked in and they were asked questions. And in many cases, they were not truthful. And I could discern that. I think the audience could discern it too. I'll give you an example of how the main officer came across as not being a good witness. When Luigi Mangione was sitting in McDonald's, the call came into the police officer saying, "Hey, listen," I think it was the manager. She said, "This guy looks like he's actually the New York shooter." And so when the call came to the dispatch and then to the officers, they went to McDonald's. They stood in front of Luigi as he's sitting there having his breakfast. And they questioned him, saying, "Hey, look, you look suspicious." That's what people are saying here. Okay. So the officer continued to ask different questions, but they told Luigi, the reason why we're here is because McDonald's is complaining that you've sat here too long. Luigi pulls up his receipt, says, "Listen, I've only been here 40 minutes. You could see the receipt." Okay. So then the officer says, "Well, this is the 6th time in the last week that we've gotten these calls and have to come to McDonald's. Okay, so that's lie number 2. Okay, lie number 3, the officer tells Luigi, oh, we have to go to another call. So on the cross-examination, Karen Agnifilo does a great job at pointing out, so you lied about this, that, you lied about that. Okay, so at some point during the video, the main officer asks Luigi, says, oh, you're having breakfast. Are you eating the steak sandwich? Luigi says, yes. The officer says, the steak sandwich is my favorite. So Karen Agnifilo on the cross-examination, she says to the officer, when you told Luigi that the steak sandwich was your favorite, were you telling the truth or lying? And pretty much the entire courtroom was laughing because they started to see that this officer just basically right from the jump, he basically lied to Luigi about everything. Now, does this take away from what happened on the streets of New York to Brian Thompson? No, that's not what we're saying. This case is about the rights of a man who's on trial, right? Innocent until proven guilty. Well, he's headed to trial. This is a pre-trial hearing, okay? So they're lying to him. When Karen Agnifilo cross-examined the second officer, he explained that in his school in Indiana, he was taught that officers can lie to regular civilians. They could also create a ruse and make up a story just to get you to tell the truth. The average American probably don't know that unless they watched the first 48. So that's why I'm quite familiar with that too, sitting in court and also watching a lot of crime TV. Okay, so that was the key ingredient. But when it came to Luigi, they they checked. Sorry, they checked his book bag, and they claimed it was all because they were looking for an explosive. They waited over 20 minutes to read him his rights. They didn't acquire a warrant, right? Even after they went to the precinct. Excuse me 1 second, sorry. So the point of the matter that I'm trying to get to is that there are some consecutive situations where the officers did not abide by the rules. And so this is going to be a major problem when they get cross-examined in the trial. But the judge could come back and suppress a lot of the information that has already been presented at the hearing. So for the most part, that's the key points when it comes to Luigi Mangione. I'm going to hit a few of the comments before we end. Let's see what we have here. Spinderella says, cops can lie to you legally, LOL. And that's been ruled on by the Supreme Court, so that is true. Okay, Butch says, good. I don't need your approval. Just wait. Okay, that's a personal conversation there. Okay. The sake says you're scared to provide proof because you have none. Okay, that's a different conversation. All right, so it looks like most people are talking about the Epstein files. And yeah, so, okay. Put a 1 in the chat. Let's try to get a pulse of those that are here. Put a 1 in the chat if you think Donald Trump is seriously jeopardized by the Epstein files. Put a 2 if you think it's a nothing burger and that the president has really nothing major to worry about. So let's see what everybody is thinking in regards to the Epstein files, since that's the main conversation. Stella says, like, share, and subscribe, and turn on your notifications to be notified for the upcoming show. Okay. All right. The sake says, nobody approves of a liar anyway. Okay. Spinderella doesn't think that Donald Trump has anything to worry about, but the Osaka 69 says 1-1 with a lot of ones. So you believe that Donald Trump is in hot water, perhaps? Okay. All right. Thank you very much for that as well. Okay. Let's see here. Butch says Bill Clinton was in the pool with Epstein with a redacted person. That is true. We showed that earlier. So Bill Clinton has a lot to worry about, but he's not the current president of the United States. So I don't think people are really focused on Bill Clinton as much as they're focused on Donald Trump. All right. Okay, let's see here. What else is going on? Okay, let's see. Butch says Bill Clinton said he was not close with Epstein, but he's in a pool with Epstein and a redacted person. Redacted is for minors and survivors' privacy. Well, I don't know if they put out that this person is a minor yet, but I understand that they did want to protect the victims in this case. So I get the point there. Butch says redacted photos are minors and survivors. Okay, not sure if it's for minors, if that's the official reason, but I do copy what you're saying. So that's it for today, folks. Thank you guys for tuning in to the channel. We covered some of the hot topics that's happening today. We'll see you guys back tomorrow for news at noon as well, to cover some of the major stories that are happening, especially in our country, but we do cover things that develop around the world too. We know that most of those things impact the United States in one way or another. We also have at 8 o'clock tonight, we'll be back on to do a deep dive. So you definitely don't want to miss that. Okay, we have Mark in the building. Mark is regular here on the channel. We appreciate having you here, Mark. Democrats are mad. Okay, told you Trump never visited the island. Okay. All right, thank you, Mark. Spinderella says, there's evidence of Trump being around Epstein after he said he broke his friendship up, then Trump is in problems. There's evidence of that. I could tell you that already. If you go back to the emails, they kind of point that they actually had some sort of communication going after that. Okay, we have a new sub. Okay, all right. The Osaka. Okay, thank you very much. Mark says, have a great weekend, Mel. All right, tune back in tonight for a deep dive. We're going to look into some major stories. Spinderella says this is okay. There is okay. Not sure. Okay, Marky Mark. Okay, Marky Mark. Okay, great. Okay, great. I kind of figured that based on the photo. Spinderella says, "Oh right, I got some homework to do." LOL. Okay, great. Mark says, "See you for the deep dive tonight." Okay, thank you. Tomorrow we'll have news at noon. We'll also have at 8 p.m. Well, actually, it might be a little bit earlier. I think I love you too, Mark. Thank you for all the support. Tomorrow night at 8 p.m., we typically have the show with Calvin Johnson. He's a legal defense attorney, right? And he'll help us understand the Luigi Mangione case from a legal standpoint, which is very important because I have a lot of questions in regards to a lot of the details that I could not get into today. But that'll be tomorrow night at 8 p.m. So make sure you tune in for that as well. Derek Gordon, nice to have you here, Derek. I don't think I've seen your name before. Derek says, I support Trump, but they didn't release all the files. They have to redact more stuff, but they will not release anything bad or any standing political leaders from either side. Great point, Derek. I can second that. And great explanation. Brian says, I changed my vote. Friend could only be Clinton. Okay, so you think Clinton was his friend. Is that based on the photos? Okay, Spinderella says, thank you. You're welcome, Spinderella. Nice to have you here. You are participating so much, and it's duly noted. I really do appreciate that. Theo Saka says, I agree with Derek on that one. Okay, so he has some sort of great point and backing there. Okay, guys, so thank you very much for tuning in today. Make sure you tune back in tonight at 8 p.m. for a deep dive. Derek Gordon says, yeah, I'm new. Sounds okay, great. Okay, Stella says, enjoy what you're watching. Please like, share, and subscribe, and consider becoming a member. Okay, thank you very much. And that'll be it for today until tonight at 8 p.m. So we'll see you guys then. Thank you for all the participation. And you guys are truly appreciated. Thank you.
Different voices, but the same song. all belong. Kindness leading the way, breaking the chains. In the symphony of love, the flame remains. Embracing diversity, brighter days in sight. Watching the world sharing love and light. Hearts beating as one in our peaceful flight. Colors of harmony, painting the night. United we stand in love's pure might. Watching the world sharing love and light. Hearts beating as one in our peaceful flight. The colors of harmony, painting the night. United we stand.